Well, welcome to this week's edition of my Insights of the Week. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. The market has opened on an upbeat for the day. It's always a nice way, you know, start the week making some nice profits. It is October the 20th. So we are in fall. Starting to blow snow up in the mountains here, which is awesome. We'll be skiing in no time. Quick reminder that everything we do here is for educational purposes only, not intended as investment advice. So, with that, I'm over here monitoring my puppy. So, my dream was I got this little puppy dog who's now almost 7 months old. Got him 5 months ago. And I had this vision that I'd be able to work and have him alongside, and he would just dutifully lay down. Well, he sort of does that, but this dog has a mind of its own. But it is so nice to be able to, do what I do and have this little sweet companion next to me all the time. So what's moving the markets? Government shutdown may end this week. Dun, 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 dun. So, I guess the game of the kids on the playground, I'm going to take my ball and go home. And yeah, but you're ugly. And, all that stuff. Maybe it's about to end. You imagine if businesses operated the way the government operated. Yeah, their stock would all be worth nothing. First of all, they wouldn't make any money. And then you shut your business down from time to time as a manner of leverage. But might that be a catalyst for the market moving higher? I think the market's moving higher today on that assumption. So I don't think it's going to be a huge catalyst. Everybody knew it would happen. But I think a protracted shutdown could have caused the market some consternation for sure. Earnings announcements going to start ramping up this week. We had some financials last week. Those went really well. Market was up last week as a consequence. Trump appears optimistic about a trade deal with China. I think that's kind of the biggest variable sitting out there right now. If we entered into some kind of a trade war with China, that is a big deal for the economy. It is a big deal for the stock market. I'd really like to see that get put behind us. So, you know, I don't know, maybe Trump was in a good mood, or maybe some of our people had a conversation with some of their people. I know that he and the president of China have a planned meeting, so let's hope that that goes well. The 10-year Treasury is now under 4%. It's great for stocks. Helps mortgage rates. So that's really positive. And oil prices, boy, they have just been falling, and it doesn't look like they're going to stabilize at this price. The chat is that it could get down around 50. If it does, you may want to consider taking a position in an ETF known as USO. That's US oil. So it's an ETF that physically owns oil, and you would benefit from any increase. If it gets down to 50, it's not going to stay there. It can't. You will do damage to the oil companies, and the forces that be will make sure that it rebounds. It does every time. So there's something to just kind of keep an eye on. Market breadth last week, pretty good. If we look at advancers versus decliners, 1,823 stocks up on the New York Stock Exchange compared to 1,009 that were down. 230 stocks hit new 52-week highs, 136 lows. Similar kinds of ratios on the NASDAQ. 2,894 stocks up, compared to 2,051 down, 564 hitting new highs, 296 hitting new lows. So you would feel like investors should be very optimistic moving forward, but they're not. Now, here's a little bit of weakness. These are stocks trading above their 50-day moving averages. So if we wanted to create a bit of a trend line here, we could start right there. And it's definitely been moving lower. So we're at 43.73%. In a bullish market, typically more than half of the stocks are moving higher. Big winners, Bungie Global up 20%, JB Hunt, transportation company, 20%, Estee Lauder, Making Us Beautiful, up about 15%. Same with On Semi, Best Buy, I like that store, 13%, KLA 12, Generac, they make the generators, Prologis, Micron Technology had a nice week, up 11.5%. Monolithic Power, same, up 11%. So the VIX is a volatility index. It's something that you want to check in on. Those of you that check the market daily, make sure part of what you're checking is the VIX. So we call it the fear index. What happens is when the VIX is on the rise, fear is on the rise, selling generally is taking place, and then that money will move into, among other things, treasuries. It heads for safety. So you can see over here, the VIX goes up, the yield on the 2-year went down, and the yield on the 10 years I just showed you went down. So does that make sense? That if there's more fear, there's going to be more selling, that money gets repositioned into less risky assets. Here's last week's heat map. Looks pretty good. Well, that's your Oracle. Oracle took a big hit, 7%. Caterpillar, 2%. Lilly was down, but by and large, a whole lot of green out there. Now, this is very interesting. Market sentiment, right? You would think that the sentiment would be decidedly bullish, but it's not. And I just really think people get scared off by what they hear in the media. So every week, there's a survey done of independent investors asking them, what do you think the market's going to do, up, down, or sideways over the next 6 months? Historically, 37.5% are bullish. Now it's 33.7%. Historically, 31% are bearish. Now it's 46%. So I suspect that some of that has to do with the fact that the markets are basically sitting at all-time highs, and people have been trained to believe what goes up must come down. Well, if that were true, how is it that the stock market has produced a 10% return on average for 120 years? Now, it does go up and down, but there is nothing that indicates that a pullback is imminent. The Fed's looking to do 2 more rate cuts this year, and earnings is supposed to be pretty strong. And if we get a deal with China and we get through the government shutdown, I think there's every reason to believe the year's going to finish strong. Tons of earnings. Coca-Cola on Tuesday, Netflix on Tuesday, GE, GM, 3M. I mean, there's Tesla on Wednesday. That could be a market mover. AT&T. Yeah, we've got just a slew of earnings. This is not the busiest week, but there are enough earnings announcements. Could be a market mover. All right, let's take a look at the charts, see how things are appearing. And we'll look at the S&P 500. There's your VIX right here that I was talking about. So the market is up today, so the VIX is down. Kind of how that works. S&P 500, that is one gorgeous looking chart. So the yellow line is a 50-day moving average. It has acted as a support level during these little mini pullbacks. We are above that 50-day. 50-day is sloping up. Everything on that chart just looks fantastic. So for now, we're in good shape. So hopefully it's the beginning of a really strong week for us. I hope you have a fantastic week, and I'll check back in with you next week. Till then, be safe, be blessed, and bye for now.